We're going to bring our meeting back into session. This is the Playground Subcommittee. It's Monday, June 17th at 6 o'clock. We're at 5:53. And so I'd like a motion to begin our meeting.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the meeting will begin. The first step on our agenda is to approve the minutes, and there are 3 changes that I'd like to have made. The first one is on the first page where it says equipment warranty. It should say surfacing warranty. And so this is the surface warranty is actually 3 to 5 years and not 10 years. Different from the equipment, surfacing is has fewer warranty years. So that's number one. Number two.
So 2 changes on that page, both places where equipment is mentioned
Both right.
to be changed.
It should be changed. Number 2 is at the top of page 2. It is the AARP grant. I know it says the ARPA grant. We also talk about ARPA, but this particular grant was.
You mean AARP?
AARP.
Yes, that should be changed.
So that should be changed to AARP. And the third one, and this one was referenced to you, Brian, says Mr. Mattaway noticed that Alice Jarvis has a tremendous amount of driftwood that she's willing to donate. Was it that she was willing to donate? I wasn't sure that that was what she was prepared to do.
Yeah, I think she would
wants to
donate.
Okay, all right, so that
Yeah.
is fine, no correction there. And the only other thing on the bottom of page 2, Mr. Mattaway's name ends with a Y, and so this one just ends with an A. If you could correct that, so we can correct last name there. Any other changes? I'll give you a minute to read through.
And no amendments. In my view.
No more.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so moving on to the playground
Do we need
equipment.
to vote into?
You need a motion.
Vote to approve, motion to approve the minutes, with changes as discussed. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So next is the playground equipment update. So we talked previously about investigating a wheelchair swing, and when I didn't see this, when I asked Pumpin what the pricing would be for that, they mentioned that wheelchair swings are not considered inclusive because they're often separated out from the park, and so that a wheelchair carousel is a more inclusive item. So they gave me pricing for this. We don't, in the current configuration layout of the park, have room for it. We would need to ask for more room to the left, or looking out at the water to the left of the playground. So this is something that I'm not going to recommend at the moment, but if at some point we're able to expand the playground, this would be a good idea. Everybody
I
else.
have 2 concerns about it, and I use this piece of equipment that we're circulating in Newark's playground with my daughter, and I'm guessing this is just which is fairly new, the playground, less than 5 years, I think, and it moves really hard. So even with just one kid on there, it's hard to spin it. So there could be something broken underneath that it's kind of blocking it a little bit, but nobody's fixing it,
Right.
but it's not a good sign that it broke.
Right.
And so that's one concern, but in that same concern, I'm worried now with the person in a wheelchair itself being heavier than a kid probably itself. Now, how successful we can be there. So maybe a conversation with company about that, to talk about typical life of that equipment, how frequently people complain or need maintenance on it,
Right.
as well as, is my experience in Newark really just unique and something that needs to be addressed by. And, you know, because if it's going smooth, then my concerns are way, like, minus the frequency of maintaining.
Right.
Second concern is about the adding stuff to the left as you look into the water, because I don't know if anybody noticed during the Decoration Day,
Sorry.
as they blocked off that area there, around the playground, there was just mud there, nothing but mud and water. So I just don't know if there's any space extending to the left further, just because probably this is as far as we can go. And this is just my guess, of course, I have no idea, but I would assume we can have better success extending elsewhere. I don't know where, but I know that's the only kind of area we can go without going beyond zip line or closer to the restroom. So really the only one is to the right, but I know there's a border already and stuff, so pathway. So naturally to the left would be the cheapest expansion, but I just don't know what's happening there with that water.
Good question. And
So
we'll talk a
definitely
little bit
something we
about
should.
that. The second playground equipment update is the zip line. The seat, the replacement seat for the zip line was apparently sent to the city.
Okay.
And they Compton recommended we hold on to it until the first one is beyond use and then to replace it at that point. It's not terrible at the moment, but Compton, Scott was right on. He said it's probably because the kids are standing on it
Yeah, there, I've
instead of
seen
sitting
kids.
on it. And sure enough, I looked over, standing on it. So that's what's happening. And I did ask him for a more robust solution. And I also asked him if there was a cover that could go on it. And I haven't heard back from either. So I'll continue to follow up to try to get that.
Could we, on that line, have a sign, picture of, you know, no standing or something, or text no standing, you know, crossed?
We
I
have
know
had-
we already have some several signage there, but just to extend and not have to have this maintenance all the time. I know it wouldn't work 100% of the time, but
We have had zero success. We've had one successful sign. Everything else has been torn down. So it
oh,
is,
it falls off.
no, it doesn't fall off, it's peeled off.
Oh, gotcha.
So yeah, it's signage is something that we haven't firmly worked out yet, how to keep signage up because.
Can we
it's-
do a post next to zip line instead of it being on the equipment?
Maybe there should just be a set of posted rules that are like, you're gonna use the zip line, which is a pretty elevated piece of playground equipment, if you know, just from a playing perspective, that like for obviously safety concerns to take into consideration, but just use terms that should be followed while you're using it.
In regards to the signage, I wonder, again, you have to obviously get out of the line of the zip line. But I know our public works department makes signs.
We do.
I wonder if it's worth seeing if they could make a sign that would kind of go in like a post.
That's what I was saying, yeah.
Right,
Like,
and you know, something like that, that's more permanent. And then I'd imagine what you were looking for, Scott, at Compton was, like, I guess they have the seat that quote unquote comes with the zip line. Like, is there another seat that maybe is more definitive, like, don't stand on this, you know what I mean?
That's what I'm looking
Yeah,
for.
yeah,
And with the signs, I think initially we talked about having a post at some point and we were worried kids might run into it.
I was just thinking about
So I think having a QR code on the equipment itself, where they could scan for the guidelines is probably the only thing we can get on there where people will have access to guidelines, where it won't immediately come off. How effective will that be? Really not sure.
there's no enforcement.
Yeah, it's signage. If you guys can figure out a way to make it stay, Rick would be delighted because he's made a bunch of different things and nothing.
Big yellow line sign that says, play on zip line at your own risk, like not responsible for injuries.
Well, the one that has stayed, at least, I haven't looked for it recently, but he did, rivet it. It's a metal sign and it's on the outside of the zip line. And it does say from 5 to 12 years. And that's really the message that we needed to convey. The fact that they should be sitting and not standing, I don't think we're gonna win that battle.
because
so anybody watch skiing? I'm thinking those gates before a skier starts, almost like walking through a gate somewhere, like a metal little gate that's light. But you know, as you come out to the zip line and sit there before you go, so you would go through it. but like just something that says a sign there, please, you know.
How many times have you seen a skier trip over those gates?
Well, as I was thinking about it, I was like, how many kids are gonna try to climb using those back, but
We did ask for an adjustment.
it's a bad idea is what I'm saying.
Well, we did ask for an adjustment where we have stairs going up to the zip line instead of people coming up.
Oh,
the
yeah,
ramp,
from the
and-
side,
And
yeah.
we asked the trustees to fund that, and they turned us down. If we were able to get steps, then we could put signs, on the risers. And that
Oh,
could
that's
say all
that's
of
a good
these
idea,
things.
yeah, why not?
But we just need I think it was about $8,500 to make that adjustment, so.
How much would it be to put sign right now on where kids walk up there? Or on the floor, on a stand, like as you look down, like
Right,
everybody looks down as you're coming, I feel like,
I don't know.
right? Cause that even if we could use city, public works sign, still
Right.
put it on the floor there.
Not sure, and tripping
Yeah.
hazard. If you're looking at thinking.
For that?
Maybe,
Like
because
just a little-
it's not gonna be flush. Just,
Yeah,
I'm
mhm.
channeling Rick,
Mhm, yeah.
so being devil's advocate.
Yeah,
But I think if we can get that ladder, I think we have options.
okay,
Anyway, okay, so that is the playground equipment update. We've got lots of grant updates. So number one was, Senator Poor is working on the bond bill as we speak. If you haven't had a chance to email her yet, please do let her know how delighted you are with the current playground, how much you're looking forward to the new one that will be accessible. And she will be grateful, and she will be able to push harder if her constituents are pushing for the playground.
Suzanne, the bond bill portion that's being requested is solely for the surfacing, correct?
Solely for the surfacing, yep. Okay, AARP, we know we did not get that grant. We do have a meeting in July. And whoever would like to come, let me know. But that they will,
You can't have a quorum of members at a meeting outside of a public meeting.
two people, okay, so if you want to come, let me know and we will have a maximum of.
You can have three.
We can have three, okay. To come to this AARP, after denying us learning more about the project, they're now more interested in what we're doing, so.
That's great.
That is good to hear. Laffey McHugh, we did not get that grant,
Excuse me, what was that?
Laffey McHugh. I can spell it, I've learned, it took a while, LAFFEYMCHUGH. We didn't get the grant, we did meet with them after, and they went through the couple things that we need to do. We will resubmit it in the fall, and now that we have welfare grant money, which is the next thing, we did win, we were awarded $75,000 from the Welfare Foundation. We have a year to get all of our funding together before they will cut us a check.
So basically, that's contingent upon raising the rest of the
Contingent.
funding for phase two.
Contingent upon raising the rest of the funds, exactly. So
That's great.
now we've already reached out to Laffey McHugh to let them know that we won this. They congratulated us, and it looks better for the next.
Yeah,
time
yeah,
around.
absolutely.
Next up is something that I learned about a playground down in Laurel, Delaware. They received $938,000 for an accessible playground equipment via an FY 2022 congressionally directed spending request. So this came from Senator Carper's office. And apparently we can reach out to next year's congressional delegation around February to see if a similar request could be made for FY 26. So this clearly is a huge amount of money and could help us build this big
I
playground.
think Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester is running for Senator Carper's seat.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be
She would be-
hopefully if she would be the person to reach out to her
Or
office.
Senator Coons.
Oh, yeah, Senator Cruz,
Yeah.
yeah,
One of the
he
other-
remains.
Yeah, and then Sarah McBride, I think she
Oh, she's running for,
she doesn't have, Eugene Young dropped out.
is she running for the Lisa Blunt
Yeah.
Rochester's seat
Yeah.
in Congress? Okay.
Yeah.
Representative.
Okay, let me,
Opposed then?
I think there's probably there'll probably be some independent or other candidates, yeah. I don't think that window is
just wanna make
closed
sure that I show everybody the welfare
for,
grant
for
letter.
people to,
That one I'll throw it to Matt, Brian's already seen it. And the last grant I wanted to talk
That's awesome.
about, was the forestry grant. So this was a grant. It's a $5,000 grant with a $5,000 in-kind match. We opted to go with the in-kind volunteer as opposed to raising $5,000. And it allows us to buy trees to be placed around the playground to give us shade and to soak up the water. And we have two University of Delaware landscape architecture students with their professor, Anna Wick, who came and have put together a plan. And so this is the plan that they put together. And we submitted it on Friday. And we'll hear in the next couple of weeks whether or not we're being awarded the $5,000. Now, I've been working with both the city, Suzanne Sauter and the city, and the trustees, Mike Alfrey and Tommy Clayton. And it appeared like everybody was on the same page. And then I had a conversation with Mr. Toner this afternoon, who asked me to hold off planting any trees, and no worry of that because we don't have the plant yet. We haven't got the grant. But apparently the trust and the city needs to have a resolution about the playground. Now, this grant is not really playground focused. It's more, let's bring shade to people who visit this part of the park. And so I'm hoping that they will look upon this as a separate thing, not needing to be intertwined with the playground equipment. We'll find out and see.
Was that concern shared when you talked to other two trustee members earlier, or
I just asked them.
you haven't heard that
approval.
before? Okay.
I just asked them for approval and they had no
Okay.
problems with it. So
And you said this was submitted already, the grant?
the grant was submitted on Friday.
So nothing really can be done at this point, except withdrawing the application, but there's no point in that.
Yeah, no,
So
hopefully this will be resolved.
This will be resolved, hopefully.
The last thing on grants is that we do have a meeting on June 20th at 11 o'clock for the University of Delaware Grant Assistance. And so the idea is that they can help review our grants, help focus our grants, to make sure that we get more of them.
That's great.
So that's really exciting as well.
Yeah, they got a nice.
After that, we did have somebody, Kelly McCurdy from the Spirit of Christmas, who is looking for a 501c3, I guess, partner for Spirit of Christmas, and is looking to fundraise for the playground as part of
That's
that.
awesome.
So that could be a really tremendous community-based fundraising, which we really want to do.
Yeah.
So we'll learn more about that in July. Let me just see if I have anything else. Brian had reached out to the community in Dobbinsville over the weekend, and there is a woman, Danielle Gervais, who is interested in perhaps joining us and to talk about the playground in Dobbinsville. So that is an open opportunity as we look to the neighborhood playground.
Could we invite her to next?
I
subcommittee?
invited her to this
Okay,
one.
okay.
She's not here. But that was, okay, so I think that's really it. Any comments?
Just a question about last meeting, something that you mentioned about Ms. Price suggesting that they could do a bicycle fundraising event in town. Is that something that has been discussed any further?
No. I've been reaching out to Fee about she had written a press release for us. She hasn't sent it yet. We have no press list of our own. We could put one together. But she apparently is on vacation and will do that when she
Mhm.
gets back. The fundraising component, event component is something that Encore has to get clearance from. If Encore is gonna sponsor it,
Mhm.
because for liability or 501c3, we design this.
Okay, for the event,
For
gotcha.
the event. So
Yeah.
this event would have to be done in conjunction with the city,
Mhm.
not Encore.
Gotcha, for liability.
For those reasons.
I'm guessing everybody's signing waiver in some sort, paper or electronic, like they
All I
do
know
for
is our
the
accountant
events.
said, no.
Mhm.
So, unless he changes his mind, that's what I'm going with.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Matt, did you have any questions?
Really, I am curious in terms of like, I know that obviously there's city discussions about the budget happening right now. And wondering sort of where that stands and.
Yeah, I can
That's-
give update there, yeah, because, I guess at the meeting.
Rather lively discussions happening right at a
Yeah,
public meeting, so
So we have met a lot of times over the last several months. So as you can see in notes of May 13th, I have made a request for $350,000 to the city council, $250 for phase 2 and $100,000 for satellite playgrounds to kind of be a seed money or match fund, match grant funded money. I think, besides Brian and I, the other council members felt like they were appropriate. The amount wasn't appropriate. So I requested $100,000 just for phase 2 later. But then we'd learn of the, deficit that city had at the time. So I have withdrawn my request as of the latest, which I'm rethinking, given the resurfacing of the grant that we just won. So, and some other facts that we found out about the budget process that we have always ran, last several years, we had similar scenario in the budget. This is just first time kind of talking about it this way, so it's just anyways, I don't know how much funding city will allocate, if it's gonna allocate any money, but the request is gonna be back on the table. I think I've thought about it again, and even for a vote, even if it gets no's, it's okay, but just want to make sure that it's not something that we ignore as a city, and see if we can even strategize of funding some now, some portion in a mid-year budget after we see how we do, revenue wise. So yeah, it's just a little tricky, I guess, at best.
Is it the ARPA funds or is it something else?
Well, that's a part of a tricky part that happens since ARPA funds were discussed in a separate kind of lens in the past, but recently they have moved and become part of general fund. So the allocation of those funds is a little more under scrutiny, I would say, than it has been in the past. And I think just another part of it, if you've been watching meetings, is that as we're thinking about future and thinking about flooding resiliencies, committee grant that needs some matching funds for, most likely eminent domain, the city's thinking of putting that money aside for emergencies like that, where potentially not to have to be taxing people for that purpose solely, and so it's several factors playing into decisions of council members, I think, but I think I'm bringing it back just because I think I would rather just have a vote on it, and then we'll see what happens. I know that the bench amount from 8,000 has been lowered to 3.
Mhm.
So because we were cutting across entire budget, making cuts because of the current financial situation, that amount has been cut, but it's still in there for equipment, on their equipment budget. It got moved from at the time, I think Encore was incorporated, so the Newcastle partnership put it under their request, but then it got moved into a budget under, Public Works, so it's still there as of now. So if we vote in a budget this week, it's 3,000 that's there for shading and benches. But yeah, that's the only
to know.
thing, yeah.
Okay, and those are for playground benches or they?
This is, to my knowledge, Encore's request to NCCP to the city, so it's kind of earmarked for that, not kind. In my opinion, is earmarked for that purpose alone, so. Brian, did you get a sense that was earmarked for that purpose? 8,000 from Encore's request to NCCP, the city was reduced to 3, but it's still for that same purpose, or did the purpose shift recently, do you think?
My understanding is the same purpose, however, we have not gone through the grant requests.
Well, this has been moved out of grant requesting to just regular budget. But this is
Okay.
outside of the NCCP's grant, because they're only having, I think, 2,000 right now requesting of their operating, funds projects for the brochures, I think,
Yeah.
but they initially had 8,000 that got moved into, and their request was at 0 at the time,
That's right.
because the entire amount was just moved into budget for us to vote at, as not a request, just rather, this, basically, city administrator Antonina suggested, why have a middleman? Why pay nonprofit money that's gonna go through city, through Public Works? Makes sense.
Yeah, it
to
does.
me.
Absolutely does.
So,
Brian, did you have any questions?
No,
And
Okay.
my understanding, I'm not 100% sure, but if we were to ever vote any money approved for playground, I don't even know if it would go to Encore. I'm just using same logic, even if Encore, whatever, we're requesting for playground. My understanding would be, it would just be in a city budget,
Yeah,
and then whenever we're doing phase two, that's when that money
it would be added in. Yeah,
added in
there's no
fine.
reason
So,
to give it down.
Yeah,
for-
there's no,
I
so
mean,
just my thinking,
The reason Encore exists is to be able to access money the city can't.
yeah, exactly. So given this is city's grant, then, it just makes sense, just,
Is there a way that this subcommittee could write a letter to the general public, just like a letter to the editor, breaking down the sort of financial phases, but also just like where we stand as from our funding position, because that's always a huge minefield when money is talked about in a public sense, and it's the talking point is always like this playground's $1 million, this playground's $800,000, and it's like, well, it is and it isn't because of these factors, but nobody ever really hears it is and it isn't because of these factors. They hear
Yeah.
the big dollar amount and they're like, we don't need to spend that money.
Yeah.
And
oh, we're
especially-
not, yeah.
Yeah, and especially now the tensions are a little high, it seems, in some camps, and I know that people like to talk. Rumors start spreading and it just becomes this sort of like elephant in the room when really it just is like, this is not what you think it is, or it might not be as like drastic as you think it is. So I think that it would
I'm
be-
happy to put together a letter to the editor, especially since we just won the Welfare Foundation, and this would be a good time to
Yeah.
do it.
just like real layman's terms of like, this is where we are, this is what we need,
Okay,
this is why we need it.
I'll put that together and
DEFCON
I'll.
1. You know?
I mean, I think it's a valid concern people have, but I also think it's misconception too of real,
Right.
like what happens, because I had a conversation with several folks about, I kept hearing the playground grants that were run from bond bill and RPT in the past, phase one took away from city funds, and I'm like, I don't understand, this is state, both are standing grants that were awarded to the city for this purpose alone. But understanding on the other side was this took away from other grants that we were about to apply for, which I wasn't aware of. But that's every grant, right? Like if you're choosing like you're making a priority as a city, we want this, this and this, right? And that time, this made a priority list, right? So even if something was cut, road repairs, it was cut on assumption that we're requesting X amount for road repair, we're reducing this so we can pull this in because this is also our priority. So I think that's the information out there that I'm hearing.
Okay.
And I'm like, that may be true.
Mhm.
However, like that's the priority list that you're making as a city, so. And somebody else's priority list may not include playgrounds, so that's probably why we're hearing. Stories there, so I understand it somewhat, but at the same time. The language we should have as a subcommittee is that. This is a priority to the city, so that's why I made a list, and it's. Right again at RPT and bond bill, requested from the city, to actually increased request for both, I think.
Yeah, I just think sort of not, I'm gonna say controlling the narrative, but that sounds so much more aggressive than what I,
Leaving the narrative.
well,
At this point, it's reactive. At this point, it's reactive because the news is out there about.
but also with things like landscaping and with benches and, all these things that have been talked about, maybe other additions to the playground that are coming, the surfacing, et cetera, the sort of added costs of sort of perpetually adding on to this playground. Even if they're minor things like adding, a little chessboard table or whatever. That's a stick of dynamite because it's like, well, we've already spent this much money. It's like, we haven't, but it's always gonna be this sort of perpetual monster that is ugly to some people because it's like, well, all this money is going to this thing, but it's not going to this other stuff. But
Well, I think this
it's all a
is,
misconception, but it's all about why this money is going to this thing. And that's what we need to get control of.
I think this is a newest grant that we as a city added. We have every year requested same bond bill. Right,
Yeah.
different areas. This is the new one that is breaking through, and then that's the biggest adjustment there as a city. But I think this is such a great opportunity for the city to learn from playground how fundraising can be applied to other projects as well.
Mhm.
Not the ones that we're already getting money, perhaps for those two, but how we can fund some other new projects going forward, because there is. We just saw almost $1 million awarded to Laurel right, from source that we have never even thought about. I mean, you talked in the past, but, you know, so there's a lot of these, and I'm sure that request, we might have some competing interests to, you know, request something else, but you see what I'm saying? So I think that's an opportunity. But I can tell you this, when this is done, not if, when this is done, it's gonna be one of the highest highlights of the city, right? Because
Oh, yeah.
it's such a, I know it's a playground and people probably associate it with kids only, but if you spend a day there, or if you can have a vision and imagine benches, shade, cool playground, you can imagine being grandparents there, parents,
Yeah.
kids, you know, everybody is, I mean, zip line, for example, is not used by 5 to 12-year-olds only.
Oh, yeah.
There's
Everybody's
younger
out
kids
there.
and older adults using it, so it's, you know, all generations. Kind of,
I love this landscaping plan and considering how much Newcastle prides itself on being a tree city. I would hope that everybody's behind this. I love that the basketball court seems to be getting some shade over here too. That's wonderful.
Hey, Matt, I'm walking from the Mercury's Street, whatever, I have Mercury's, between Norlees, the little
Oh,
bike
yeah.
path, right? I'm walking Separation Day, and first thing you see is playground. Now imagine if the first thing you see is finalized play, when do you see
Yeah.
that? Like, just imagine that picture as a visitor, you come in and you're, and or resident, and you're just proud of that, you know, because
Yeah.
it's such a family event where kids are just gonna be, you don't even need those, right? You just need playground there, you know? So it's just, you know, those moments is when you're like, we're fighting a good fight, you know? So anyways,
So, I love to hear that you like. So I guess the question I have in my mind is, how do we bring the trust and the city together to support this?
have you talked to Antonina about this as well? I think she can be.
Antonia's been in on this grant
okay.
from the beginning.
For talking to trustees, I guess.
I
She's
think-
already had several conversations about what, you know, playground and park in general trust. I think having her, you know, in those conversations will be beneficial, I think.
What sort of concerns has the trust raised about the
Increased maintenance, I would assume, you know.
maintenance?
And it's really not necessarily about the trees, it's about the playground. So this is kind of a deflected problem.
But I think we're trying to find that out because the other two trustees didn't raise that flag, so I think we're just gonna have to have a conversation and
See
see.
it through.
I did have one more thing, and I know this is probably redundant and it's probably deep in the conversations already. It was surfacing. That sounds so ridiculous, but I got served an Instagram ad for cork surfacing instead of rubber. Has that been discussed? I do know that cork has a 5-year warranty on it, so 3 to 5 is a bit watchy.
Is it
Cork-
cork tiles?
No, it's like cork crumbles. It looks like there's sort of like heat pressed into the shape. I'll do a bit more research on it, but from
We
what
need to
I-
do research from ADA
Yeah.
perspective too, but yeah, I mean, anything should be discussed, especially if it's cheaper too, like, I don't know, but.
Cost wise, I don't have a number, but it did tout itself as being cooler than rubber as well, which I have a really big concern about,
Yeah,
especially if we
yeah.
do run into the trees.
Well, this week we're having 95-degree weather,
Yeah,
right? So I mean,
nice.
that's just the
Yeah.
beginning of it, right?
Right.
So,
So I'll do a little bit more research on it, but I
that's great.
thought that was an interesting
Yeah.
alternative, and I think it might be a little bit cheaper, but I don't want to.
Yeah, I think, you know, it would be wise for us to explore as many options as we can and not just, I think rubberized was just what we've seen elsewhere as a popular option, and that's why we've been talking about it ever since, but you know, it's not gonna slow us down. Like,
Right.
I don't think, in the sense that we don't have this money right now to begin with, so.
In my mind too, my dad brain is like, well, some kid's gonna come along and like rip that up somehow. I'm gonna find all the bad things about it, but
Yeah,
that's what you need, is like, sort of worst case scenario, what's good and what's bad.
yeah.
Um,
I do like the
I think I
patches,
found
like
it. It's
use the
called
circles or
14.
something in a high
Yeah.
trafficked
I think that's
areas. For maintenance, it's cheaper than saying everything's same, you know,
Modular.
and yeah.
One of the
That's
other
smart.
surfaces that I looked into, because I see it all over Philly, is turf. And I checked out with Compton to find out, and he said that it's
There
an
is,
artificial
yeah.
turf, yeah. And he said that, he's been asked to resurface a turf with rubberized surface, so I
It's
don't know.
probably not as soft as rubberized surface, I would assume. I play soccer on artificial surface and you under it, like it's still compared to grass, you know, even. It's actually more detrimental to your joints.
Let me look into the
My
corking,
opinion.
this sounds like it could be a
Yeah.
good option, so let me
So
check that out.
there's corking, but then there's another brand as well.
Is there? Okay.
I'll try and find what it is, but it's basically like little cork pellets that are just sort of heat pressed into.
Well, the warranty itself is worth looking into, you know, if it's 2 and 3 versus 5. You know, it's
Yeah.
double, I mean, just,
Well, the ones that we have are 3 to 5. One
oh,
is
3 to 5, I thought we were just saying
Yeah.
Did I misread that?
3 to 5.
We just updated that, right?
That was under.
3, okay, it's 3 to 5, yeah, okay.
All right, do a motion to adjourn. Do I have
So moved.
all in favor?
Alright.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Matt, for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
If you'd like, I can pick you up on my way and drop you